Hello and welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people. Emphasis on the grounded.
Right, we were trying to figure out what to talk about on today's podcast, and then we found ourselves like venting to each other about the level of extremism that currently exists in our culture, and we're like, oh, maybe we should talk about this.
Mhm.
So that's what we're doing. Because I think we it's a really important discussion to have because we also want to talk a little bit like eclipse season is now over. We are now on the other side of it.
Mhm.
Um
We're all still here
Yeah, the rapture didn't happen. It's
again. And
again,
I want to just be totally plain about this. When I was a kid, like 10 to 18, okay? And I totally 10 until 18. I was the one looking for codes and signals of the rapture. That was me. Okay? So if anybody can speak on the chill out on the rapture prediction things, I feel qualified because I
yeah,
spent my whole youth trying, well, not my whole youth, I don't want to get too crazy, but a lot of my time in high school trying to figure out how not to actually have to die naturally, which was the rapture.
which is wild. So, I mean, everyone knows I was raised very Catholic, and Catholics don't focus on that at all.
Oh
I
man, it
had
was
no idea. Like, I think maybe one sermon that I ever heard was about like this is how the world's gonna, but it was presented in a way of like this is the way Jesus told us the world's gonna go.
Mhm.
Bye. And like that was just it wasn't like let's figure out when. It wasn't like prediction. There was none of that like Christian like intensity around
Mhm.
the rapture and getting into heaven and those sorts of things. Like it was like, oh well, we got confession, so
Right. We're set.
say
No,
sorry.
we had to make sure not only we were ready, but the rest of the world, because I remember hearing once as a kid that Jesus wasn't going to come back until everybody had had a chance to hear about him. So I was like, I'm going to every corner of the world and I'm going to tell them because when the last person hears, maybe then none of us have to die. And again, it was like a big theme for me as a kid, Scorpio moon and rising. I had a
Mhm.
lot of, fear of that. Now I'm a lot better about the whole transition of it because there's so much more to life than just the living and the dying pieces. But back
Mhm.
then it was like, no, it's your duty to make sure that as many people are salvaged as possible. And I say salvaged instead of saved because I think saved in the appropriate context has an entirely different connotation.
Mhm. Salvaged is funny. I think
Thanks.
that's a really good way of saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting. The first time I was ever really kind of exposed to this like extreme level of like we need to prepare for end of days and prepare everybody. One of my best friends grew up Jehovah Witness, and so in high school, I would go over to see him, and his mom would be like, "Let's talk about the Bible." And I love her. I still love her. She's a lovely, wonderful human. But like the things she would talk about, I was like, "What?" Verse from the Bible, but I guess not this Bible. Like, what's happening? Um, but anyway, this is all just to say we have been actively like if you notice, I posted my eclipse do's and don'ts video, and then I kind of signed off the internet for like 4 days. I
Mhm.
literally just kind of like pushed it away and just set it down because I personally was having a hard time with the sheer amount of extremism occurring around the solar eclipse. Now, I saw the total solar eclipse the last time it was total, like what, 7 years
2007.
ago?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, it was wonderful. I loved it. It was beautiful. It was just me, my husband, and my three kids alone on a lake in the middle of the forest. It was neat. Totally embraced it. So already I'm like, does everyone just like forget that we already had this? Like this, it's not like, yes, the path now is over the East Coast instead of the West Coast, but like it did just happen very recent, not even a decade ago. Really, really recently, we had a total eclipse, and we're gonna have another one not too far away.
Mhm.
There's more coming in the future, and so even on that note, like yes, it's a big spiritual event, but people were. in every sense of the word, going to the most extreme. And it's such a statement on the current state of our culture and our need to believe things to the most extreme in order to feel validated. And that's whether people are going with Christian beliefs, people are believing those beliefs in the most extreme version possible. I mean, look at the Arizona um, House of Congress, blah, 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 the Senate
Yeah.
House the other day in Arizona, where they're praying in tongues, like on the floor of the government house. Like, what is happening? So, like, there's that most extreme. And then there's also the atheist most extreme, which is also coming up, where people who don't believe anything are also taking that to like extreme levels of spewing hatred towards anyone who believes anything and going incredibly intense that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the alternative spirituality approach, and there's such an extreme level coming from there too, with New Age and conspiracy theory. And personally, it drives me absolutely bonkers that conspiracy theory people get lumped in with spiritual people
Mm-hmm.
because they're so not. Like, we might have some of the same beliefs, totally, but like anytime an event happens, the conspiracy people end up being like shoved in with like the spirituality people. And I'm like, why? Why are we talking to flat earthers right now? Like, what is happening? Because it's so extreme. Like, there's no need to be that extreme in any of our beliefs. That is not a requirement.
No. And again, having come from a place where I was that person,
Mhm.
where there were things that when I married my wonderful husband, I would be like, yeah, back in such and such a year when this happened related to the government or something. And he'd be like, that historically never happened. And I'm like redefining so much because of these things that I was told happened, didn't get to research it, didn't think I had to check the people who were telling me these things, and believed and built years of my personality on that, only to find out not true, didn't happen. And so this is why I'm such a big proponent of doing your own research. Another reason why it's so helpful to do your own research, and another reason why I think we cling so much, and some people, are more prone to clinging so much to these conspiracy theories or these big things, is because we have a lot of big feelings that we can't process right now. A lot of people have a lot of feelings and nowhere to put them, and no desire to process them in the slow
Mhm.
and steady way. And with that, they look for some big container. And the big container is, oh, well, the world's ending anyway. I can put all of my hopes on that. And that actually grounds me because I
Mhm.
can't figure out what's wrong elsewhere. I can't put my finger on this other problem. And this is why at Sacred Spaces, we're so focused on saying, is that spiritual? Or is that, something that you would actually look to a therapist for support with? Mental health and
Mhm.
spirituality can really support each other, but they also need their own processes and their own support. Spiritual growth and mental health sustenance or maintenance should be separate in part. They
Mhm.
can, like I said, help each other out a lot. And I know, like, looking for meaning, looking for purpose, looking for the why did that happen?
Mhm.
Spirituality really does help with that. But we're in a world right now where people are trying to figure out why global level things that are out of their control happened, and they're looking for this greater power that's coming to save them from it, rather than saying, okay, the power's with us, the greater power is also with us, and we need to create this world that we want to see. And if along the way we happen to get raptured, great, but maybe in case we're not gonna, let's build a good world.
Great. Great.
I saw this one thing of, and someone who's earning their MDiv right now, I'm learning a lot about where all this stuff kind of rooted in originally. And it's
So
just
funny.
mind blowing to see how long ago this all got started. It's not new, but
No.
someone, I was reading a subreddit the other day, and someone was like, I just got a $400 tip with a little note that said, in case you don't ascend on Monday. And part of me was like, this person who clearly believes they're likely getting raptured on Monday, thought they were doing a good thing by like giving their money away since they're not going to need it anymore, but also
Yeah.
how condescending.
I know. Like, right thought, kind of wrong idea though.
Yeah,
Like,
like really not the best execution, but at least this person, you did help that person, but it didn't come from the
mhm.
best place. And
Yeah.
like this is where ethics and morality come in, right? And that's something that we all have to figure out for ourselves, just like we have to figure out our spirituality. There's so much exploring to be able to do that. If you don't have the root yet, you can pursue things that will help you feel good, and you can pursue things that will give you something, at least for now, to focus on
Mm-hmm.
to help you get through until you have more clarity on those emotions. I truly, truly believe that, as someone who has a lot of maintenance in my spiritual, mental, and physical health all the time. Like, I have a therapist, I
Mm-hmm.
have spiritual counsel. I am constantly growing my knowledge and my wisdom of the techniques and the things that I put my trust into. And I
Yeah.
have a doctor too. I think we all deserve that. I think
Mm-hmm.
our systems could support that better too and make it more
Or at
accessible.
all.
Yeah.
Or at all. Our systems could support that in any way. Because all of those things, and we know very actively all those things are privileged. That's why we put so much free stuff and content out there. Like the
Mhm,
amount of stuff that I put almost everything out there that I can teach that doesn't require like learning, like a buildup of learning
mhm,
is out there for free for the most part. Like
mhm,
it truly, truly is. Like unless there's, you need to be at a certain level in order to understand that specific thing. That's like my like 202 things and 302 things and those types of things aren't for free because I have to know you've like learned enough to get there. Other than that, like all of it's there on
mhm,
some channel because again, we know it's a privilege. We know that not everyone can afford therapy and spiritual counsel and to get readings and those types of things. So like the best we can do is be like, yo, here's how to be magic yourself. Like you can do this. And I do want to say, I think that there's another thing, especially as people who are diving more into spirituality in general, whether they haven't necessarily for a long time, or maybe this is the first time they're doing it literally ever, or maybe this is just something that like they want to renew their passion for or really reconnect with. It is easier to find the fantastical thing to get excited about
mhm,
than the mundane things to get excited about,
mhm,
which is fair. I completely understand that. I will do that sometimes too, because sometimes there are fantastical things to get really hyped on. Sometimes some of the like conspiracy theories really aren't that conspiracy theory. And I usually post videos when it's not, when, people are like, there's a mimic in my house, or I caught this thing on video, and I have to come in and be like, yeah, there is. Like that's happening. The world is shifting. Our veil is basically non-existent. And I did get a big download after the eclipse about how it was removing another layer of like dense vibration
mhm.
from our space. So there is, again, even less of a line
We're all
between us.
ascending. Look at that.
Yeah, between us and the spiritual world. The line is very, 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 very thin. It is quite literally like Swiss cheese with too many holes. Like it is so
Yeah.
small. And it's only going to get thinner until it is completely separated and dissipated, and that will happen in our lifetime. It will.
Mhm,
I can feel it. I can see it. It's really accurate. More and more people are catching things on video and feeling things, whatever. But what I will say is when people want to get excited about something spiritually, that's when they tend to go the most extreme as possible.
mhm,
And that's also not particularly healthy. I had someone comment on one of my videos that she was planning on staring directly at the sun during the eclipse so she would get a full download. And I said, please don't do that. Please, would love, like, please don't do that. Like, you still have to exist in a human body. We're still here on planet. We still have to wake up tomorrow and go to work. Like, don't do that. It's not going to affect the download that you get. If you're meant to get a download, you're going to get one. She never responded. I was like, awesome. Like, that's
yeah.
terrifying. But it's this need to have like, oh, the world is so magical and this proves it and this proves it. And it's just taking that to such an extreme and so much too far. Don't get me wrong, follow those things. If there's things that excite you so much about even a specific conspiracy theory, to be totally honest, because a lot of them aren't conspiracy theories. A lot of them are, but a lot of them are actual things that have been covered up or whatever. If that's really exciting to you, I'm not in any way trying to like yuck that excitement. All I'm saying is still be present and grounded in like the current reality we have to live and exist in, and your current spiritual practices that keep you safe, that keep you in alignment, that keep you communicating with your guides. Because what really happens the second people go too extreme, they completely forget about their shielding and their warding, and they open themselves up emotionally and spiritually to whatever the hell wants to come in and mess with you because you're so invested in one particular outcome that there's no detachment
Mhm,
from results. It's purely that this has to be the result and it's going to be the result. And you're so desperate and eager to have that one specific thing be true or be real or whatever, that sometimes you just forget all of your other spiritual stuff that you've trained and you know how to keep yourself protected and just let in whatever.
Mhm. Well, and that's an amazing point too, because often what we're doing is we're saying, again, we're putting it in a, it has to be only this way. So people who are, to your point, we are kind of all ascending right now because we're all getting
Mhm.
more and more connected with what's going on. Whether we're conscious of it or not, is a whole different process and everybody deserves their own. But
Mhm.
one group of people will think it has to show up a certain way, which means you have to vanish in the blink of an eye, because Jesus is coming like a thief in the night to come to rapture you up. And so I remember a couple of years ago, there was another rapture prediction, and people were actually putting their pets. Someone opened a shelter, and it
Oh
was
yeah,
like
that's what you
for
said. Hmm.
pets of raptured people, and people were taking their pets there. And they were like, "Don't worry, we're not going to get raptured. We're atheists." And I thought that was pretty clever, first of all, but also the fact that people did.
Hmm.
And so they thought it has to be a total physical body vanishment, disappearance thing. What if it doesn't? When
Hmm.
I work very closely with Jesus, I do. That is my primary guiding energy. And when I talk to them about this, it never has been, and it was a disappointment to me. The person who was trying to avoid death by believing in the rapture, I had to come to Jesus moment where I had to say, like, is this going to happen in my lifetime, or do I have to accept that I'm going to die? And that terrifies me. And the response was basically like, it's not what you guys keep saying it's going to be. Like, I don't
Hmm.
know where you got this image from. And when you look at the Bible, you can see how it got a little bit confused. And that's why I'm earning the master's in divinity, because I want to help dissipate some of that confusion for anybody who's interested in it. But it doesn't have to look a special way. It can be one of the things that I picked up on was like the rapture moment where you're closest to God because of
Hmm.
this, right? You can be taken to be with God, is literally just any moment that you are fully supported in your own faith, in your own belief system, and helping another person. Done.
Hmm.
You've reached some form of heaven in that energy. And yes, there's more afterlife. And yes, there's more, like, eons from now. But it doesn't have to be that we all just vanish in the blink of an eye. And I too watched the Left Behind series and the movies and read the books and did all those things. I get it. But I don't think that's necessary. That was two authors' interpretations, and it was highly
Hmm.
entertaining. But I think it's okay that we find our own interpretations.
I asked my mom because again, my mother was a librarian. I read every book. If there was a book, I read it. Like the kid, like I read so many books. Um, except for Harry Potter, I wasn't into that. Obviously, I wasn't going to be. It wasn't a good match for me. But anyway, when I had a neighbor who was extremely fundy, like extremely fundamentalist Christian. Like you trip on a root, and she's like, "The devil tripped you." Like extremely fundy, and she was reading the Left Behind series, and I was like, "Oh, books! I love books." And so I went home and I asked my mom, like, "Can I read that?" And it's like, "Absolutely not." I was like, "Oh, really?" And she was like, "Yeah, there's no way. That's not for you." And it's like, okay. My mom has never told me no to a book before. I guess I'm not
Wow.
reading that. Which it literally had never happened before. And now looking back and I'm like, oh, Bundy. I didn't really
Mhm.
get it. I was 8. Like, got it. Makes more sense to me now. But yeah, because that was such a dramatized like thing. And I think I mean, media matters. That's why we talk about high vibration fiction all the time, because it's
Yeah,
influential
yeah. And
and
to
it
the
hits
point,
you.
okay, to the
No, no,
point of
no.
the world wanting the world to feel magical, you can have that. You
Yeah.
absolutely can. I just don't think you have to have it by bypassing feelings that you don't want to feel. I went to
Mm-hmm.
that conference a couple of years ago. It was one of the first magical conferences I spoke at, and the difference between that and it's something like astromagia, I was the only one citing sources, guaranteed, in that whole conference, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody was there. You could feel the grime of unhealed people who were just hoping that someone would come in and, Harry Potter away their illnesses or their fears or their whatever they weren't feeling. And the
Mhm.
minute they left that hotel, I did a cleansing, but also you could feel the air just get lighter when the conference was over because you
Mhm.
didn't have so many people unwilling to allow themselves to heal in one place and putting all of their faith in something that they didn't understand and therefore couldn't work with because what were they working with?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we go the right way about it, and that's more of a process way. But if you want it to stick, if you want to believe magic is real and get consistent
Mhm.
validation for it, the slower way is the way to go. Get validation
Mhm.
every day. Let it grow. Let it get more impressive. Let it, put you in a place with a random statue that animates to life and blows your mind. Like that kind of stuff can happen and it does happen.
Oh
It
yeah.
also can happen in your own living room.
Mhm.
It will
On
find
that
you.
note, last night I was smoking hookah in my living room and I bumped it and the coal fell off of the hookah, which is always my fucking biggest fear. I'm like, damn it. But it happened to like bounce off the side of the hookah and land perfectly on the plate. And I was like, who did that? Because there's no way. Like the trajectory of that makes no sense. Like
Mhm,
it had to go inward to bounce to go onto the plate. Like it was one of those things I'm like, okay. And Cinnamon had done it, my lovely house fairy. I was like, oh, thank you, Cinnamon. Like, I will leave you something. So, like, I went into the kitchen and I was like, what would you like? And they were like, an orange. And I was like, I don't really want to peel you a whole orange and leave it on. Like, that screams ants to me.
mhm.
Like, I appreciate that, but like, maybe not like a whole orange. Um, I was like, what can I do that's like with that? And our DoorDash the other day had left us like a little packet of candy with our DoorDash, which was really sweet. And so I pulled out an orange Tootsie Roll and I was like, yes. So like undid the Tootsie Roll and I set that down. And he was very excited about it. And I was like, okay, good. I'm so glad. And then I was like, good night, Cinnamon. And he was like, good night, not Cinnamon. And I was like, do you want to know my name? He's like, nope. Cool. So I thought that was really cute as far as
I love
magic
that,
happening in your living room.
right?
Night, not Cinnamon. But anyway, it was
No, I love
precious.
that story.
Hmm.
But again, and that's one of the things I get most excited about. Our Deity Academy starts up this week. We're going to
Hmm.
be having so much time to A, research, B, converse, and C, practice
Hmm.
all of these things that are going to feel magical every day for everybody who's involved. The fact that shout out to all the group chats from Ireland,
Oh my
from Greece, from
gosh.
Egypt.
I
They are still
know.
keeping magic alive with each other and sharing validations. And shout out to anybody who went to Sacred Spaces and is still in touch. Also, thank you to all of you for allowing us to be a part of that process for you. Do you know how amazing it is that we get to create these opportunities for that? But that's why we do it, because we both know what it's like to really want magic to feel real on a daily basis and not be there yet.
Hmm.
I remember being like 12 and thinking, I'm going to be experienced by the time I'm 22 if I keep doing this, but I'm 12 right now, and the 10 years between now and then feel awful. And now I'm 30, almost 34, and I feel great about it because at least I did it rather than putting it off. So it will take time, and starting at
Hmm.
any point is starting, which is great and honestly worth celebrating.
Yeah.
And celebrating is a great form of magic. Celebrate
Hmm.
that you witnessed an eclipse. Celebrate that you're here for whatever comes next. We're recording this on a day where both malefics are conjoining in the sky, and it's been a hard day, you guys. But I
Yeah.
have looked forward all day to exactly this because
Hmm.
not only am I spending time with you, Em, but I can feel the energy of all the people who listen. And it's like
Hmm.
being with my people. So I look
It's
forward
so
to,
special.
yeah, it's like coming up for air. And
Hmm.
I really, really appreciate it. So find ways that you can come up for air too. And if this podcast is one of those ways, we are so grateful to be a part
Yeah.
of that and so glad that we can be here for you.
And don't forget, I mean, if there is things that you're like, oh, but I really felt like this with the eclipse. Like I really got drawn to doing this, but you said not to do that. We are never, ever giving you rules. The
Mhm,
people who give you rules are not in your alignment. We do not need to be putting things into other people's internalized version of what the box should be for
mhm,
it to be effective. There's no rules in spirituality. We give you suggestions.
mhm,
So you follow that own path. However, what we're saying is there is no need to go to the most extreme ever. There's no, you don't need to go to that space. to live a line magical life, to have your life be exciting and magical and romanticized. There's so many things you can do and be so excited about and be so passionate about without having to go to the most extreme thing. And we know there are 40 million voices online telling you 40 million different things. We're completely aware of that. And especially in the spiritual community, the amount of posts I saw that was like, I can't wait to manifest on this eclipse. What are you manifesting? And I was like, "Ee." And then the amount of posts that were like, use these mantras to release things during the eclipse. And I'm like, hey, like, I don't know if I would do those things, but it's just people, again, going with what feels best for them and then trying to broadcast to everyone, assuming that it's what's best for everyone. And that's just not how things work. So always follow your gut, always trust what what feels the best for you and your alignment and what steps you feel like using to move forward. Always lean in on that.
Mhm.
We're here to provide guidance and suggestions based on literal years of experience and massive amounts of research and tons of meditating. And I spend so much time in the astral plane. None of you
Yeah.
see me there. Like I'm there by like doing my own thing. I don't make content of me sitting here with my eyes closed, but I spend so much time on the astral plane figuring stuff out. Like it's copious. And I know Krista does as well. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of our friends do as well. We do a lot of astral stuff because that's the level we're at and that's how we get information. That's what we're giving to you. So I don't want anyone to be like, but I really want to talk about aliens or I really feel connected to that. If you do, that is amazing. We love that for you. Personally, I hate aliens. I don't to me let's get along. And that's cool, but just it's just not a thing for me. Whatever lights you up, let it light you up. Just don't forget you're a person too and how to be safe in the spiritual things that you do have at your disposal is the moral of that story.
Yeah, yeah. Because I know, like, I'm the first person who will be like, not sure I recommend doing especially willful magic during an eclipse. That being said,
Mhm.
I absolutely had a spell bottle trying to get clear skies, which I did not get for the totality. But the point of it was I did the magic for the spell bottle for clear skies several days before the moon was balsamic. So I was like, I'm going to do it now. And then this bottle that teaches the area around me how to have clear skies, I'm going to take with me. And if it is in the highest and best for the people that I am with and for myself to experience clear skies, I know that they will be clear.
Mhm.
They were not. So there was a good reason for that I trust. But I like to take my mentor in astrological magic had a great way of putting it, saying that magic can be devotional,
Mhm.
where you do these things and you request these things. But just like in prayer, you're like, hey, but if I'm asking for something stupid right now, don't do it. And that's kind of how I like to play with my magic, especially when it's around something that's not generally recommended. My thing is, here's what I'd really, really like. I'm going to conspire as much as I can to make it as possible as possible. But if I'm asking for something stupid right now, ignore me.
Mhm. Mhm. I crocheted a moon pillow.
I love that. Well, I
I'll
saw
show
some
you
people.
afterwards if you want to see. I actually technically crocheted two moon pillows. That was what I did for the
Yeah.
eclipse.
There were a lot of photos, which I think is really, really cool. First of all, like me, the person who loves the astronomy and astrology of all of this, was like, this is so neat. People got married at the time of
Mhm.
totality. Now, the one thing in the back of my head though was like, that's a vow, and a vow is basically an invocation or an incantation of intent. And so I hope that the intensity you have just imbued into your union is an
Mhm.
intensity that aligns with what you would like it to be.
Yeah. I think
Because
getting engaged during the eclipse makes so much more sense. Getting married during the eclipse is pretty intense.
it's
That is
it's definitely an intense thing.
throwing the
But
dice.
I really did like though that I had Dan standing next to me. So of course, the whole time, my version of excitement is geeking out and sharing facts. So
Mhm.
we get into totality and it's there for, I think we were in like a minute and a half of totality and then it moved along and I was like, that's how fast the moon moves. Isn't it crazy? Like the moon moved. And Dan was like, oh my God, wait, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it moves like 13 degrees every day and you just watched it do it. And
Mhm.
the connectedness of being able to witness the forces of creation and nature do their thing as
Yeah.
nothing but a bystander, being able to release the attachment to being all powerful and like in complete control of my life, and to just say, those guys are doing their thing right now, and I'm just going to sit here and respect that, was a
Mm-hmm.
really nice relief, to be perfectly
Mm-hmm.
honest. You know, just
Yeah.
that reminder that, like, hey, you're itty bitty, you have meaning, you have power, but also look at how much else is going on that you're a part of. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
loved it.
I know. I will say I do feel incredibly privileged because where I live, there is no separation between us and nature. That's
Mm,
just not a thing. You're very, very attuned every single day to what nature is doing around you and how you're a part of nature and how you're truly at nature's whims all the time.
mhm.
Because of our storms and because there's bears. I saw a baby bobcat the other day. I was so excited.
Oh,
It was a baby. It was so tiny. Just trotted across the road and I like stopped my car and I'm like watching him and he like pauses and he turns around, like looks at me and Lee and like shakes his little butt and like runs away. It was so precious. Anyway, I was like, that is good. That's an omen of good things. Like I've never seen a baby one of them before. I've lived up here for 30, almost 32 years, and I have never seen a baby bobcat. I've seen bobcats like 3 or 4 times, but never a baby one. Well, no, like 5 times. But anyway, so you're so attuned and connected all the time to what's going on with the nature. And what everyone up here does for fun is to go outside. It's just what you do. If it's in the
mm,
winter, you go to the snow. If it's in the summer, you go to the lake or into the mountain to go hiking or whatever. And it's I know it's a privilege. And so growing up, I've always been that connected. And it's been so interesting as an adult to see other people get those brief moments of figuring out that connection, especially people like in the city watching totality and like crying. I'm like, yeah, guys, like this, yeah, it's like we got this. We are animals. Look at us be animals together. Um, it was just really, it's just a cool thing. So just
mhm.
remember, I mean, as much as our society would love to separate us from what is wild in nature and true, that is you. Your body is that. So us being here, we are actually connected in all of those different ways, in
Absolutely.
really powerful, meaningful ways. So anything you can do to remind yourself of that, the stronger your magic will get. Not joking. The stronger your magic will get every
Yeah.
single time. Um, Also, now that eclipse season's over, you can do magic again.
Yeah, have fun.
Mhm.
Literally just go for it. Everything that you come up with. I've been working on some really good magical elections in my Patreon, two of
Mhm.
which are actually like good enough for potentially talismans. And I'm very excited about that. So I
Whoa.
may be making some talismans this summer, which is great now that I'm in a home and I can like, open
Yeah.
all my stuff back up and get the materia and all that stuff together. I'm very pumped about it.
The last time Krista was able to make like significant talismans was
Like,
over 2 years ago. So
because it's
that's
been a
really
thing.
amazing.
Yeah, I haven't been able to like bust out my stuff because I've been not
Hmm.
solid. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you have my favorite. You actually possess my favorite talisman that I've ever made.
He's right there.
Yeah.
You're
I'm
watching the
so
YouTube.
proud of
It's this little glowing circle in the corner.
her. She's
I
gorgeous.
love it. She's
Um,
gorgeous. I bless her from time to time and just re-up her juice.
oh,
But
that's awesome.
she needs
Yeah, and
that.
this is gonna be the next new moon. Once the
Yeah.
moon is new and probably crescent will be good because it'll be a new moon in Taurus. Exalted. I would
Mm,
recommend a full moon in Taurus or Cancer, but we're on the wrong side of the year for those things right now. So
fair enough.
yeah.
Um, cool. Well, thank you all so much for listening, for being part of our magical community. It means the world to us. Also, if you want to find those, breath of fresh airs, the community, the group connection, our Japan trip, it is genuinely for people who are ready to go to the next level spiritually, because we are going to do a lot of like understanding your higher self, understanding your connection to earth, understanding your soul journeys and your soul patterns and the path forward. It's a lot of that. And it's has so much very deep, potent transformational energy about it. And bookings are not open for all that much longer. So if you
Yeah.
want to do that, we do have a discount code
Mhm.
right now that is only for, I think, 4 people, 5 people. I don't know how many people
I think we have
uses are
four
left, but
more.
it's limited.
Yeah.
And it gets you 200 off. And what is it? Does it take 200? What is it? The quote.
Tokyo 200.
Anyway, Tokyo
Tokyo
200.
200. All caps.
Tokyo 200 all caps. You can use that at checkout and you will get $200 off your investment in the Japan trip. And if after the eclipse you're like, oh my gosh, I have all this bottled up energy, I need to transform, I need it, you feel like you're crawling out of your skin, which I know a lot of us are, between the amount of creative energy that's now coming in and the amount of transformational energy that's now coming in that we don't necessarily know how to use just yet. This is a wonderful way to be like, okay, I will transform. Here it is on the calendar. I'm going through transformation. And then you have something to prepare for and open yourself up for. We'll go through the experience and then you'll be able to carry that forward in the next part of your life.
Yes.
So if that's speaking to you, we would love to have you
Yeah. And
join us on our trip to Japan.
if you are someone learning about your own worth, your own
Mm-hmm.
power, your own, like, if you're tired of defining yourself by other people's expectations and opinions of you, this is going to
Yeah,
be a trip to help you really focus on that. I got
yeah.
downloads on that today, when I was speaking with my therapist, actually, and my phone went off when I voiced it out loud.
Heck
So you know
yes.
it's a big deal.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of like balancing your energies, and
Mhm.
it's really going to be like if you ever wanted to learn how to live magically, by the time you come home from Japan, you'll know.
Mhm.
I guarantee that without a hesitation, you
Mhm.
will know. Yeah, it's going to be incredible. Anyway, if you want to, we would love to have you there. Thank you so much. And happy eclipse season. We did it. We
Yep.
always were going to do it, and now we have. Look at us
Yep.
go. Um,
Succeeded in just being perfect
yeah,
this entire time. Good job.
yeah. And remember, you can take all this magic. Oh, nope, take all this energy, and you can go make
Go
some
make some
magic.
magic.
Oh, well.